Welcome back, my beautiful humans. Today, we are going to dive into something that all of us face at one point or another. We're going to talk about moments that stop us in our tracks, moments that shift the ground beneath our feet. And we're also talking about it's not just you, it's me. I know last one we were talking about living a life of being unselfish and using kindness and empathy. Today, we're the outsiders looking in, possibly for part of this. Some of this is actually about it being us in the situation and how you can still live unselfishly even though you are living in a situation where it's about receiving a medical diagnosis. Often we view this as a deeply personal event, something that happens to an individual, but the reality of it, if we're honest, is that a diagnosis, no matter how big or small, it might seem on the surface, it really does send ripples through the lives of everyone connected to that person. When you ask the question of if I die tomorrow, it can bring a certain clarity, a sharp focus on what truly matters. And in the context of a medical diagnosis, that clarity often reveals the intricate web of the relationships that define our lives. Because it's not just you, it's me and them and them and them and them. Anyone who is connected to your life. A diagnosis doesn't just impact the body of the person receiving the news. It impacts the hearts, minds, and daily routine of their partners, children, parents, friends, and even coworkers. I know, you stop and you go, really? I didn't really think it did. But remember, we've been building legacy. We have been finding a way in this life to live unselfishly, to have empathy and courage, and be less angry about all of it. And find some humor in some of the worst situations because beauty truly is everywhere. If you consider a serious diagnosis, something absolutely life-altering, like cancer or a chronic condition, the individual is immediately thrust into a world of appointments, tests, treatments, and a heavy emotional burden. And they need our support. But their loved ones, they're right there on the front lines with them, albeit in a different role. There's the partner who becomes a caregiver, navigating insurance forms, managing medications, schedules, and providing emotional support while grappling with their own fear and uncertainty. The person who's been diagnosed, sometimes depending on the diagnosis and how serious it is, because of fear, which again, fear is a liar, it can cause them to push the people that love them out. And they can be mean and horrible. And they think they're doing a kindness because they don't want to feel like a burden to those that love them. And I just want to tell you right now, it's not just your decision. Yes, you were diagnosed with something life-altering and for the rest of your life. But it's not just your decision to decide that these people can't be in your life anymore. They love you. They will love you when you're perfectly healthy, and they will love you when you're not. There's also children who may not fully understand what's happening, but they sense the shift in the household. They see the worry in their parents' eyes, the disruption of the normal routines, and their childhood can be marked by this shared experience, forcing them to grow up faster, to take on more responsibility, or to silently carry their own anxieties. And parents of an adult child receiving a diagnosis experience a unique kind of pain. They may feel the primal urge to protect their child. Sorry. They protected you from the time you were born, before you were born. So please give them some grace, because that primal urge of your protector will return, and the feeling of vulnerability they experienced when you were a young child for them, now coupled with the frustration of not being able to simply make it all better, that weighs heavily. They will always worry about you. So it doesn't matter if you're 70 and you're blessed enough that your parent is there, or that you're 21. And when you're younger like that, at 21, there's a different thing, because, your parents for 18 years, they were able to just make the phone calls and do what needed to be done, and they no longer have that authority. And so that makes it even more difficult. They're also going to worry about your quality of life and perhaps their own capacity to provide support. And now that I've discussed the immediate family, let's talk about our close friends who become part of the support system, offering practical help, a listening ear, or simply a distraction from the medical reality. This really can strengthen bonds, revealing the depth of care and connection, but it can also be challenging as friends navigate their own discomfort, their own fear of saying the wrong thing. I mean, we've all done that, put our foot in our mouth, and, I don't care how well you clean your feet, it still tastes like stuff. It doesn't taste well. And it can also make them worry about their own limitations in providing the kind of support that they think you need. The dynamics of friendship can shift under the weight of illness, but the ripple effect isn't limited to major diagnosis. Even seemingly smaller medical issues can have an impact. A diagnosis of a chronic pain might mean a partner has to take on more physical tasks around the house. And I can tell you, it does. I've, had few surgeries, and, for the rest of my life, I'm limited on how much weight I can pick up. And I know that adds a stress to my husband and my children. And it bothers me because I don't like that. I've always been pretty independent. But I have no right to push them or to make them worry more, because I'm stubborn and I'm just going to do it my damn self. So again, this isn't just, it's about everybody. It could be also a dietary restriction, and that changes family meal planning. And that can add a whole nother thing. The kids are used to being able to eat this, or the husband or wife is used to being able to eat that, and now we can't do that. And now you almost feel like you're sneaking stuff. Ugh, we can't have this in the house, so I'm going to do a sneak treat as I go to grocery shop so I can have that. And if you find out, don't make them feel bad for doing that. They were just trying to be aware of your feelings and understand your condition. So cut them some slack. A mental health diagnosis affects not just the individual's emotional state, but also their interactions and relationships with everyone around them. Communication patterns can change, expectations shift, and patience can be tested. The emotional toll on loved ones is significant and often goes unseen. There's the fear of the unknown, the grief for the future that might have been, the frustration with the limitations imposed by the illness, and the guilt about feeling overwhelmed or resentful at times. Caregiver burnout is very real. It is a real phenomena where the emotional and physical demands of caring for someone else can take a heavy toll on the caregiver's own health and well-being. If you are the one that's being diagnosed, please understand, this is not to make you feel guilty about it. This is to make you see the other side. Because it's so easy to get lost in how we feel from a diagnosis that is happening to us, that we also have to remember that there are others. And the others want to be there. Please understand that. If they didn't, they would have walked. They're not staying out of some kind of stupid obligation. They are there because they want to be there and they want to be with you. Yes, they are focused on the person who is diagnosed, caregivers, and that they often neglect their own needs, leading to exhaustion, stress, and even depression. So there is a balancing act that needs to happen. Now that we've talked about some of the emotional, and excuse me, I need to take a drink. Financially, a diagnosis can be devastating for an entire family. And I think actually the statistic out right now is almost everyone in America is one serious medical diagnosis from bankruptcy. Because medical diagnoses and the treatments are expensive. And that adds a whole nother stress. Medical bills can pile up. Lost income due to the illness or caregiving can strain resources. The cost of treatments, therapies, or necessary equipment can be astronomical, even with insurance. I don't know about you, but like my my out of pocket, the deductible is high. And you sit there and go, oh, okay, but once I reach this, I'm good. But there always seems to be some kind of loophole with some of these medical bills. And I'm going to tell you something else. And again, this is for your entertainment purposes only. I am not a medical professional. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not any of those things. I am just a human sharing a message. That's it. But when you get a bill from a doctor or a hospital, ask them for the itemized statement. Please, please, please. I am telling you, and I know it seems like one more thing. It's like, God, you're telling us about all of this stuff, but it's one more thing. But this is important because I can tell you that is how some of those loopholes are there. Quite a few years ago, my husband had to have a surgery. Okay. Doesn't matter what it was for. Doesn't matter what it was about. But he had to have a surgery. We got the bill. And we were both in shock. I thought, what? So I asked for an itemized statement. And I'm going to tell you, I know it doesn't sound like much, but it was for $200 for a mucus collector. Do you know what the mucus collector is? It's that really crappy box of Kleenex that you get. Lord knows that is not worth $200. So please ask for an itemized statement. If there is something labeled there that you don't understand, call them. Ask. It will help you in the end. So, that was my little tidbit. Sorry for the rant. But the financial stresses adds a whole nother layer of, I don't like the word burden, difficulty. And it also helps with creating anxiety and even tension within the family unit. Soon discussions about money aren't discussions anymore. And when you're already fraught because even more challenges are happening, it's easy to get lost. So please have patience with each other and some empathy and kindness and understanding. And if it is that troubling, look for resources. Find out if there's financial aid at the hospital or doctor's office. And just because you don't think you qualify doesn't mean you shouldn't try. Set up a payment plan. Anything to start to try and ease your burden. And then when you're thinking about that and you're trying to get the information that you need, you can do it in a way that doesn't feel so heartbreaking or damaging. Excuse me again. There is a lot to figure out when you're dealing with medical diagnoses. Mentally has its own challenges. You might have to be the person that makes sure they take their meds and they don't want to. So you have to figure out how to deal with that. When you're dealing with all of this, whether you're the one diagnosed or you're the closest one that might be taking on the caregiver role, there's often this layer of survival weaved in there, and daily routines of the household are inevitably disrupted. Clear-cut roles that you might have had in your family are no longer there. You need to be able to bob and weave and roll with the changes. There's going to be appointments, therapy sessions, medications, schedules, and unexpected hospitalizations, and that is going to be your new normal. Spontaneity can decrease to all but just be gone. Social plans may need to be canceled, and the simple rhythms of life are altered. So again, you need your adaptability and resilience from everyone in the family, and it's not always easy. Take a minute here. Let's talk about frustration and resentment, because frustration and resentment can surface as lives are put on hold or significantly changed to accommodate the needs of the person who's ill. This is when communication becomes absolutely crucial and critical. And it's also when it gets to be the hardest. The person that's diagnosed may struggle to articulate what they're going through physically and emotionally. Loved ones may be afraid to ask too many questions because they're not wanting to cause distress, or they may not know how to ask. Then unspoken fears and anxieties can fester, creating distance and misunderstanding. Learning to communicate openly and honestly. And again, you can be open and honest without being mean or sounding uncaring. And while it can be incredibly challenging during times of stress, it's vital for navigating the impact of the diagnosis together. Not just the diagnosed and who's helping, together. Support systems, they're so important, but they can be tested and they can be redefined. Some relationships may deepen as individuals step in and step up in unexpected ways, offering unwavering support. Others may strain or even break under the pressure. Doesn't mean that they didn't love you. They just didn't know how to do this. So don't hold it against them. It's a time when the strength of our connections is truly revealed, for better or for worse. The person who is diagnosed may feel isolated, even when surrounded by loved ones, because ultimately they are the one experiencing the illness in their body. And the loved ones may feel isolated in their own fear and worry, not wanting to burden the person who is already struggling. If you were to ask someone facing a diagnosis, if I die tomorrow, what would they want the people in their lives to know about the impact this has had? They might express gratitude for the support they've received, acknowledge the burden their illness has placed on others. And again, I hate that word burden because to me, anyone that I love, and I've said this before, my friends are my family and my family are my friends. They're all equally important to me. Even if I haven't talked to them in 20 years, They have had an impact on my life that carries to this day. And I would never think of any of them as a burden. And I don't think any of you would either. So let's change that to challenge that the illness is placed on others, and perhaps voice their hopes and fears for the future of those they will leave behind. They would likely want their loved ones to know the diagnosis was not just a personal battle, but a shared experience that shaped all of their lives. Understanding this ripple effect is crucial, not just for those directly impacted by a diagnosis, but for all of us. If you stop and think about it, it really could encourage us to be more empathetic, to recognize that illness is rarely an isolated event. It reminds us that our health, while personal, exists within a network of relationships. And that change to our health will inevitably touch those around us. So, as we contemplate the question, if I die tomorrow, and we consider the impact of a medical diagnosis, let us remember the interconnectedness of our lives. Let us extend compassion and understanding to those navigating the challenges of illness. Both the person who is diagnosed and the people who love and support them. Let us recognize the unseen battles carried by caregivers and family members. And also let us appreciate the strength of the human spirit, not just in facing illness, but in supporting each other through it. And that goes not just for illness. I know that's what I'm talking about right now, and I hate to squirrel on you, but that goes for everything. A job loss, a relationship breakup, your children moving away. It's all loss. In the end, our lives are not lived in isolation, even though some of us really try. Anyway, but in a shared experience, in navigating whatever tomorrow may bring, together. Don't be afraid to check in with friends and family. Also, remember, independent people, as much as you love them, rarely ask for help. And although you mean well when asking them what do they need, to them, it's another decision that they have to figure out. It's another question they have to think about, to answer. And it really may be just too much. We may see it as something easy, like, how can I help you? Do you need me to come do your laundry? Or, and they're not going to tell you, yeah, that's what they need. But they're also not going to see it as easy, because to them, now the conflict starts. Yes, I could really use the help, but I don't want to say I could use the help. So I'm just going to say I don't know. I don't know right now. And that's perfectly fine. But admitting that they need help is really, really tough. And they are already feeling so vulnerable. While asking is nice, I would also encourage you to ask yourself instead. Ask yourself, okay, if I was diagnosed with whatever it is, what would help me? Or you can ask their family, who, yes, they are also overwhelmed, but as you branch out, some of them are just far enough back that they see what's going on, they understand it, and they're in and out. So they might actually have a really good idea of something that might be helpful. So when you take that moment to either ask somebody that is involved but somewhat removed, and asking yourself, if you were in the situation, what you would need or what you would find helpful, just do it. It could be sending gift cards for restaurants or DoorDash or Instacart. It could be getting them a grocery gift card. It could be making some meals and taking that over to them so they don't have to, because, okay, again, going off on a tangent a little bit, but every day we have to figure out what to make for dinner. Everybody has to eat. I don't like it, and I'm not dealing with a chronic illness or a devastating medical diagnosis. So if I don't like it even now, I can't imagine that they would like that. Because it was already a pain in the butt on a normal day. So sending them a restaurant gift card so they don't even have to think about it, or preparing the meals. And I'm sure if you're close enough to them, you understand if they already have dietary restrictions. And it's just accommodating that. It could just be sending flowers. Or it could be picking up the kids and taking them for a quick bite. Or to their scheduled activity so that some of the routine still happens. We all have trouble asking for help. It's even harder vocalizing what help we could use. So, as a suggestion, just again, ask yourself, if I was in this situation, what would I find helpful? You could even put together a little basket. And it doesn't always have to go to the person who's diagnosed. And if there is a caregiver situation involved, and I know everybody works, but you could use one of your PTOs or a day you're off, and you could go sit with them, run them to their appointments, and give their partner a break. It's just a little thing, but it means a lot. I'm going to say thanks for joining me again. I hope today was helpful in some way, made you look at things from a different lens. Please don't be afraid to share, leave a comment. And if you're going through this or you've gone through this, leave a comment about what helped you through this. Because if we share this with others, maybe someone else won't have to struggle in an area that you struggled with. And it can be helpful without going into too much detail, because of course this is your personal life. As always, be kind, be grateful, and stay humble.